The day my gym clothes reeked of onions, I knew I couldn't just cry and let it go. This time I would make someone else cry for real. My name is Emily. I'm 16 years old and I had just transferred to Parkwood High 2 months ago. New town, new school, same bullies. At first, it was little stuffed Snickers when I raised my hand, whispers when I walked by. But when I started getting weird looks every morning, I knew something was building. I've never been the kind of girl who fits in easily. I read during lunch. I don't wear makeup. I'm quiet. And for some people, that's enough of a reason to make you a target. That Thursday morning felt off from the start. My gym bag felt damp when I picked it up from my locker, but I didn't think much of it. The warning signs didn't hit until I stepped into the locker room and unzipped the bag. A wave of bitter, sharp stink slapped me in the face. My gym clothes were completely soaked in some slimy, oniony liquid. It was so strong, I gagged. The white shirt had brownish splotches all over, and my shorts looked like they'd been dunked in soup. The worst part, I didn't have a backup. Girls around me started sniffing, turning up their noses, looking at me with wrinkled expressions and loud laughs. That's when I saw them, Sierra, Kaylee, and Brooke, the three ringleaders. They were watching from across the benches, trying and failing to hide their smirks. I should have said something. I should have walked out, gone to the nurse, anything. But I froze. My heart pounded, my ears rang, and my legs moved like they weren't mine. I put on the clothes. They were cold. They clung to my skin. When I walked into the gym, the smell followed me like a curse. Coach Davis shouted, "Get in line for warm-ups!" But even he wrinkled his nose and stepped back. "Someone needs a shower," he muttered. Everyone laughed. My eyes burned. I kept my chin down. I did jumping jacks while kids held their noses and mimed gagging. Someone coughed loudly behind me and shouted, "Smells like an old burger." I spotted Kaylee holding her phone up, filming me. I wanted to disappear. Instead, I went through the entire class trying not to cry, pretending I didn't hear the jokes, or see the phones, or feel the shame curling like smoke in my chest. When the bell rang and I rushed to change back into my normal clothes, the stench clung to my skin. It was in my hair, in my nose. I could still smell it by fourth period. I sat in my next class trembling not from fear, but from rage. They thought I'd just take it, that I'd cry in the bathroom and never fight back. But they had no idea what I was about to do. I couldn't concentrate in any of my afternoon classes. Every time I blinked, I saw Kaylee's phone pointed at me. I could still hear Sierra's loud mocking voice imitating a sob. The worst part? No one stood up for me. Not the coach, not the other girls, not even the teacher who saw the video being passed around. The moment I got home, I locked myself in my room, stripped off every piece of clothing that still held that foul onion stench, and threw them into a garbage bag. I sat on the floor in silence for a long time. The humiliation kept replaying like a broken record. My hands were clenched so tightly, my nails dug into my palms. Then I opened my laptop. I typed revenge without getting caught into the search bar. I didn't want violence. I didn't want to get expelled. But I did want justice. Justice that felt good. Justice that would make them remember they messed with the wrong girl. I started researching, watching prank videos, reading forums. Something began to take shape in my mind. The next morning at school, the girls were still laughing. Brooke leaned over my desk in first period and whispered, "You smell better today. Thank God for Febreze." I didn't say anything. I just smiled, calm, creepy, slow. She blinked and backed off. It was the first time I realized something silence can be scarier than shouting. I spent that day watching them closely. I took mental notes where they hung their bags, what time they went to the bathroom when they were out of the classroom. Every piece of intel was valuable. I needed access, privacy, and precision. That night I went to work. From our garage, I found 3 perfect ingredients. First, tuna fish juice, the kind soaked in oil, smelly, and impossible to get rid of. Second, a mix of syrup and expired milk, sticky and vile. And third, my favorite, crushed raw garlic blended with cheap cologne. The scent was horrific, unholy. Each mixture went into a sealed plastic bag, triple layered. I labeled them K, S, and B. I packed rubber gloves and zip ties. Everything went into a plain tote bag. I practiced sealing and unsealing the prank packages over and over. I even timed myself. This wasn't just revenge, this was a mission. That night I couldn't sleep. My heart was racing, but not from fear. It was something else excitement. A strange kind of thrill I'd never felt before. I was done being the quiet girl in the corner. If they wanted to mess with me, fine. But I'd make sure they never did it to anyone else again. The plan was set. Tomorrow morning, I'd arrive at school before everyone else. I knew where they stored their bags. I knew when the hallway would be empty. They rubbed onions on my gym clothes and laughed while I choked in front of the class. Now it was my turn to make them gag. I arrived at school before sunrise. The halls were silent, just the faint buzz of the ceiling lights and the occasional creak of lockers settling in the silence. I had a pink hall pass from yesterday's nurse visit in my pocket just in case. My backpack was heavier than usual, but no one was around to notice. First target, Kaylee. Her homeroom was always unlocked early for student council prep. I pushed the door open, heart pounding. Her designer backpack was hanging off the back of her chair, just like I predicted. I slipped on my gloves. My fingers were shaking, but I moved fast. I unzipped the bag, quietly pulled out the sealed pouch marked K, and slid it deep into the main compartment right beneath her makeup bag. Then I pinched the end of the zip tie, twisted it, and pierced the pouch. Slowly, the tuna oil seeped out. I resealed the bag, adjusted everything to look untouched, and walked out. Second target, Brooke. Her locker was down the west wing, locker number 1123, right near the water fountain she always monopolized. I had memorized her combination after watching her open it 3 times. It clicked open with barely a sound. I opened the door just enough to slip the bee pouch into her lunch bag. The garlic cologne mix was potent. Even through the plastic, it stung my eyes. I popped it with a safety pin, resealed the lunch bag, and closed her locker carefully. Third target, Sierra. She always stashed her gym bag in the dance studio before first period. I crept in through the back the same way the janitor did. Her hot pink Adidas duffel sat under the bench unzipped. I reached in, found the center pocket, and inserted the S-pouch expired milk and syrup. Thick, warm, sticky. I jabbed it with a pencil, zipped it up, and left. By the time the first bell rang, I was sitting in my seat like nothing happened. My face was calm. My breathing was steady. But inside, I was electric. The girls came in like usual. Brooke touched up her lip gloss. Sierra adjusted her crop top. Kaylee tossed her phone onto her desk and scrolled through likes from last night's video of me. I waited. Period 1 passed. Nothing. Then in second period, it began. Kaylee shrieked first. What is that smell? She dropped her bag and jumped back as if it bit her. A wave of fishy air rolled through the room. Students covered their noses. Someone gagged. Her face turned pale. She unzipped her bag to find her entire makeup case coated in tuna oil. Oh my God, it's in everything, it's everywhere. Everyone stared, phones came out. This time it wasn't me being filmed. Then came Brooke's turn. During lunch, she opened her locker and immediately started dry heaving. Oh my God, it's in my food, she wailed. Her sandwich bag was leaking. She looked like she might faint. I didn't even have to look. I knew Sierra's moment was coming soon, and I was ready to enjoy every second. Sierra's meltdown was the grand finale I didn't know I needed. It happened in fourth period, just after lunch. We were in the dance studio for our elective. She strutted in like she always did, acting like the room belonged to her. She grabbed her pink duffel, tossed it onto the floor, and unzipped it to get her gym shoes. A second later, she froze. What the hell? She whispered, staring at her hand. A thick, gooey thread of syrup stretched between her fingers. Then the smell hit, sour milk and artificial maple. Her face twisted, her nose scrunched up, and she screamed. Who put this in my bag? She flung the entire duffel across the room. It hit the mirror with a thump, splattering milk across the polished wood floor. Everyone stepped back in horror as the brown sludge oozed out of the zipper like a horror movie prop. The teacher rushed over, already gagging. Sierra. What happened? Sierra's eyes were wide and watery. Someone did this. This isn't mine. It smells like throw-up syrup. Laughter exploded from the back of the room. Even her friends covered their mouths, trying not to laugh too loudly. Sierra looked around wild-eyed, trying to spot the culprit. Her gaze landed on me. I didn't flinch. I didn't smirk. I just looked back, neutral, quiet, unreadable. And she knew. All 3 of them knew. The rest of the day was chaos. Kaylee had dumped her entire bag into a trash can, trying to salvage her lipsticks. Brooke skipped her last class and called her mom, crying. Sierra sat in the nurse's office waiting for someone to bring her a change of clothes. At the end of the day, I got called to the principal's office. My heart sank a little as I walked in. Maybe I pushed too far. Maybe this would backfire. But when I opened the door, what I saw surprised me. Mr. Carson, the principal, sat at his desk with a stern face. Next to him was Mrs. Hadley, our school counselor, and across from them were the three girls, all looking pale and furious. "Emily," Mr. Carson said, "please sit down." I took the empty chair. Sierra immediately started. "She did this to us. She's a freak. She sabotaged our stuff." I stayed silent. "Is that true?" Mr. Carson asked me. "I'd like to show you something," I replied. I pulled my phone from my pocket and opened the video I'd saved, the one where Kaylee filmed me in the gym wearing onion-soaked clothes, laughing, zooming in on my red face, posting it with the caption, "Smell ya later." I handed it to him. He watched it once, then again. Mrs. Hadley leaned forward, frowning. "You were humiliated in front of the entire class." I nodded. No one helped me. No teacher said anything. They thought it was funny. For the first time, the room was quiet. My revenge had done its job, but now it was time for the truth to speak louder. Mr. Carson tapped his pen against the desk, slowly, deliberately. The silence stretched on, thick with tension. Kaylee opened her mouth to protest again, but he held up a hand. "I've seen enough," he said quietly. "This behavior, filming and publicly humiliating another student, is serious. Emily, thank you for bringing this to our attention." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. For the first time in months, someone in authority was actually listening. Not brushing it off, not laughing along, listening. Brooke looked like she might explode. What about what she did? She ruined our stuff. That wasn't just a prank, that was disgusting and calculated. I turned to her and finally spoke, voice steady. "You rubbed onions on my gym clothes. You laughed while I was bullied in front of an entire class. You posted a video for hundreds of people to see. I walked around stinking like garbage. Alone." Sierra muttered something under her breath, but Mrs. Hadley raised her voice gently. "Emily may have acted out of hurt, but what you three did was targeted, prolonged bullying. We're dealing with two wrongs, but the first one broke every rule of kindness and safety we promote in this school." Mr. Carson leaned forward. "Here's what's going to happen. You three are getting 2 weeks of in-school suspension and mandatory counseling. There will be a formal write-up on your records, and I expect you to write apology letters, genuine ones, not the sarcastic nonsense I know some of you think is clever." Their jaws dropped. "You can't do that," Kaylee shouted. "My mom is on the PTA. I'm sure she'll want to hear what her daughter's been doing," Mr. Carson said calmly. He turned to me. "Emily, you're not off the hook either. What you did was deliberate, and it disrupted the school environment. You'll receive a 1-day detention." I nodded slowly. "Fair. And we'll be reviewing all policies around bullying and staff response. I'm sorry no adult intervened sooner." The meeting ended and I stepped into the hallway feeling strangely light. As I walked back to my locker, people stared, but this time it wasn't with pity. Some looked impressed, others curious. A girl from biology class gave me a thumbs up. A senior I'd never spoken to nodded as I passed. It was strange. This wasn't popularity. It wasn't even approval. It was respect. That afternoon, I got a message on my phone. It was from Brooke. "You didn't have to go that far. We were just messing around." I didn't reply. You can only be just messing around when the person you're messing with is allowed to laugh too. I didn't cry that night. I didn't feel weak. I felt powerful, not because I hurt them, but because I proved to myself I could stand up. They made me smell like garbage. I made sure the truth stunk worse. The next few days at school were different. The video of Kaylee's meltdown over the tuna oil had somehow made its way onto the same group chat she'd used to mock me. Only this time the comments weren't on her side. People joked about karma justice and how Emily finally snapped. But it wasn't cruelty. It wasn't bullying. It was acknowledgement. Sierra, Brooke, and Kaylee walked the halls like ghosts, quiet, paranoid, and suddenly aware of every glance. They didn't talk to me. They didn't talk to many people at all. My 1-day detention came and went. Honestly, it was peaceful. Just me in a quiet classroom writing an essay about respectful conflict resolution. The irony didn't escape me, but I wrote it honestly. I explained how revenge felt powerful but also lonely, how I never wanted to stoop to their level, but no one left me much choice. Later that week, Mrs. Hadley called me in for a check-in. She asked how I was doing. I hesitated, then said better. She nodded, smiling kindly. Sometimes standing up for yourself comes at a cost, but silence has a cost too. I didn't say anything, but I knew she was right. After everything, people began talking to me more. Not in a fake way, just casually, like I was finally visible. One girl named Ivy from math class started sitting with me at lunch. We talked about books, music, even stupid YouTube channels. I laughed for the first time in a while. Like, really laughed. I never got an apology from the three girls. Not directly. Their letters submitted to the school office were technically apologies, but they were hollow. And that's okay. I didn't need their guilt. I had my peace. One afternoon, I caught Kaylee staring at me from across the hallway. She looked angry, but not the kind of angry that bites. The kind that sits heavy in your stomach, confused, defeated, unsure what to do with itself. I looked her in the eyes and didn't look away. Let her carry that feeling for a while. A week later, Coach Davis pulled me aside. He apologized, said he'd failed to notice what had been going on. I could see it made him uncomfortable having to admit he'd ignored something important. But I appreciated it. Adults rarely own their mistakes. I didn't want to be known as the girl who got revenge. That wasn't the goal. I wanted to be the girl who survived, the girl who fought back. And maybe, just maybe, the girl who made it safer for the next quiet kid. Because now, people looked twice before they laughed. And for once, that was enough. This story wasn't just about revenge, it was about reclaiming power when no one else stands up for you. Bullying is often brushed off as just a joke, but for the one being targeted, it cuts deep. It isolates. It changes you. I learned that silence doesn't protect you, it only teaches others how far they can go. Standing up for yourself doesn't mean violence or cruelty. Sometimes it just means saying, I deserve better. To anyone going through something similar, you are not weak for feeling hurt, and you are not alone. Don't be afraid to speak up. Don't be afraid to push back. But most importantly, don't let them turn your pain into shame. Use it. Grow stronger from it. Because one day the people who laughed will remember what it felt like to be laughed at, and they'll never forget the one who made them feel it.